enjoying the easy and breezy platform and the experience out here, I would quickly bring your focus, your attention onto how businesses, when they are coping with crisis, are also seeking those answers, like how marketing is affected and what should they be doing while they're figuring out. Any sort of guidance always helps, right? Especially from the experts, if you talk about. So the talk that's coming up and that's warming up, we're going to be hearing how really did Zoom marketing took control of the customer narrative and its journey of adapting to the change. It's not easy. And I'm going to bring on to for you all Derek Pando, the head of international and partner marketing, Zoom Video Communications. Derek, it's straight away over to you.
Hello, everyone. I was very excited to be here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about Zoom story. So I think I actually kind of want to set a little bit of context because I know for many people, they have spent the last year getting to know Zoom as a product and as a company, but a few people probably know where we were at as a business in before the pandemic, which is going to kind of impact a lot of what I talk about today and how our marketing changed, how it evolved, and maybe a few things that you all can learn as marketers and as business people in similar situations. So, you know, at the beginning of 2020, we had IPO'd earlier in the year, had a successful initial public offering, but most people didn't know Zoom around the world like they do today. We had primarily been used by businesses and schools across the globe. But generally, most of our users were pretty sophisticated. They'd use Zoom through their IT department or for work or, for education. So we first started to kind of recognize that it was going to be a different kind of year by actually monitoring some of our basic marketing metrics. I remember starting to see some of our metrics that we monitor, like what our inbound lead volume is, number of signups for our free product, particularly across Asia, as the virus started to spread. And at the time, our largest office throughout the APAC region was our Sydney office. And very quickly, the teams became overwhelmed with inbound interest. So I led and spun up a task force on behalf of our executive team to kind of monitor the situation. Now, at that time, we didn't think that it was going to become obviously what ended up happening. But I'll tell you a few things that we started to do that I think really helped us to handle what we were experiencing as a business. The first thing was we started to have daily stand-up communications with our leaders across the world. So I think anytime a marketer or anyone gets an environment where something is impacting your business and is extremely dynamic, which is what was happening with COVID, you have to have a much higher frequency of communication. So we started having daily stand-ups with our teams across the world. We're a US-based company, but we started meeting every afternoon to talk with our teams in Asia. Very quickly, though, because that office was really small, they got overwhelmed. And so, it was my responsibility to help coordinate resources across the globe to support them, whether that be more salespeople, more customer success. But as everybody soon found out, this was not a regionalized issue. I remember actually waking up one morning and checking the data of number of free signups by country, and I saw that Vietnam had just exploded. Now, at the time, we didn't have Vietnamese language. We had one person in the entire company who spoke Vietnamese, and we were seeing massive adoption in Vietnam. And so at that point, I think I realized that everything was going to change. If in a country where we didn't have the language, we didn't have any data centers, all of a sudden we were being used so aggressively, then I figured that at that point that we might become the app of choice for the pandemic. And really that's what started to happen. As lockdowns were imposed, as business behavior started to change, organically people started to use Zoom. But what does that mean, like, as a marketer? So I think the first thing it means is that we had to decide what was our stance we were going to take on it. Now, we had a big debate internally with our CMO and our crisis comms firms of, should we go out and say anything, make a statement about the role we're playing in the pandemic, what we're trying to do to address it. And I remember our crisis comms firm recommending that we don't say anything and kind of wait. And this was very early on, because eventually, across the world, every business, every organization was communicating very actively about COVID. But at the very beginning, they weren't. It was kind of, at least for many parts of the world that maybe weren't experiencing it yet, they were not trying to address it directly. But ultimately, we decided that we were going to go and make a statement about what we were experiencing as a company, what we were doing about it, and kind of what was our plan. And I think that was a really good decision, because we got out in front of, eventually, like I just said, everybody was communicating about it. So we were the first of all the people in our industry to say, this is what we're doing, this is how we're responding. And that enabled us to take a leadership position. And so I think one of my first lessons from my time in the pandemic as a marketer was to try to lead. If you wait until 5 of your competitors had addressed something or made a statement, it doesn't give you the chance to really control the message. So I think that was a really positive thing. The other thing that we experienced was we had so much organic interest in Zoom, because our product and the use of Zoom just went completely viral, that we turned off a lot of our traditional marketing methods, right? Like, we turned off all of our digital and Google ad spend, because we were in a position where we were trying to absorb everything that was coming at us, and we didn't have enough people to get back to everybody, and so to pay to add fuel to the fire was not. We decided was not a wise decision, and not only that, but we had to really strike that balancing act, because on one hand, having a lot of interest in a worldwide crisis in your company is a good thing, but also everyone's having a crisis. Like, you can't go out there and be like, you're super lonely, like jump on Zoom. You don't want to come off as taking advantage of what was happening. So the way we saw that as a marketing team was we shifted a lot of our resources to education and to support. So resources that were previously doing webinars trying to sell you on Zoom, they became educational. It was teaching you how to use Zoom, teaching you how to use it in these situations. Even we had an event marketing team that, of course, with the pandemic, we're not doing a lot of events. And so they were deputized to begin to accelerate the pace in which we created how-to YouTube videos and in other languages, because we needed scale. We needed to be able to communicate with our customers in a way that, we couldn't do it one by one on the phone as everything was just completely flooded and overwhelmed. And so, I strongly recommend, if other companies get in this situation, that, the headwinds of a macroeconomic change or a crisis are pushing in favor of your business, to be careful and make sure that you're striking the right tone about supporting your customers and supporting people that are in this difficult situation. If not, there can be some backlash and people feeling like, you're taking advantage of the situation. The other thing that we thought about as a marketing team in this was obviously our products and services were playing a positive role in helping people through the pandemic, whether it was keeping people in school or keeping businesses afloat, or loved ones being able to communicate. And we were getting just overwhelmed with requests for free products, or can you do this? Can we team up with that with you on this? And frankly, we just didn't have the time or resources to take advantage of everybody that we wanted to help in all the ways that we were being requested for help. But I think one thing that we did do that was good was we early on decided that where we were going to support the world with Zoom would be through education. So most higher education institutions had probably some experience with virtual learning, whereas most children age schools did not. And so very early on in the pandemic, we decided that we were going to be giving away our product free for K through 12 or the worldwide equivalent of that around the globe. And this came from a pretty authentic place in that our CEO, Eric, had always been very passionate about education. He'd always wanted to support education. It was an important part of our culture. And so when we think of all the ways that Zoom could have kind of focused some of our philanthropic efforts as a company, we focused on something that one, we thought was really needed. We wanted to do our part to help make sure kids could be in school. We had hundreds and thousands of, actually tens of thousands of schools across the world, including in India, take advantage of this program to be able to continue their education. But my tip, I guess, and my advice for being in a situation like that is you got to focus on what's authentic to you. And for us, we feel like we struck, of all the different things that we could have invested in and help or given away products, that was something that we felt was the right thing for us. But as any company that's going to experience the insane amount of attention and scrutiny that can come when you kind of go from a American company that's growing quickly, that's starting to grow internationally, to the app of choice all over the world, that is going to create some criticism. People are going to start looking at your business very closely. People are going to, if they don't know who you are, be wary of who you are. And so we entered a situation that while there was a lot of positive attention from the role we're playing in the pandemic and the adoption of Zoom, there also started to be some negative attention. But for us, this was a lot. We were very busy just trying to keep everything working well and supporting everyone, and so to also deal with this kind of a crisis at the same time was a lot to handle. But I think we learned a few lessons. I think the first thing that we learned was when people have trust issues, one of the best ways that you can address that as a marketer is to communicate and communicate frequently and deliver what you're communicating. So immediately, we started having weekly meetings with our public webinars with our CEO, where he'd give an update on what we were doing to address any of the concerns that were being brought up. So he would get out publicly, it was open to everyone, and say, it was basically his report card for the week. This is what we're doing. This is our plan. And every week, our CEO, along with other members of our executive team, would get up and on the webinar in a very public forum and give updates. And I think when you're in a situation where there's not trust, that's what you have to do. I mean, if you think of the speed at which, or the volume in which we were communicating publicly was like 10 times what we had ever done before. But because that's what we needed, and that's how we had to build trust. So I think if you get in that situation where people are, need to increase the amount of trust in you or your brand or your company, communicate very clearly what you're doing and frequently and deliver. And when people see you communicate and deliver, that's how you can build trust in your brand and in your company. The other thing that we did was we very quickly hired different groups and agencies to help us get scale. When you're in that situation where you need so much help all at once, you cannot do everything yourself. And we saw this in our PR experience, where prior to the pandemic, we had about 5 PR agencies outside the US in key countries. But overnight, Zoom was getting headlines across the world. And when that happens, for those of you that know PR, you know that you have to communicate. Each country and language has their own communication. So you have to have agencies and people that speak that language. And so overnight, we teamed up with one of our core PR agencies, and we spun up 14 additional countries, PR agencies, so that we could have a unified message. Because initially, we couldn't communicate effectively across the world in all the different languages. So my advice and recommendations, you find yourself in a situation like that, get trusted partners that can help you communicate and have a unified message. A few thoughts as we're starting to wrap up and almost out of time. I think, for us as a company, it was a very intense time. Of course, it's a positive thing, an intense influx of customers, but at the same time, you got to understand that anytime that's going to happen, the other side of it, the pendulum swings both ways. And so for us, I'm not going to say it was as a marketer who was experiencing that, it was an easy situation, but I did learn that if you be authentic to yourself as an organization, you communicate clearly, you get partners that can help you scale, you will be able to manage some of the bumps in the road and lead and maintain the integrity of your brand, and if not, build upon it, especially in a situation where so many new people are being exposed to who you are. And there's always a temptation of responding negatively or criticizing people who are criticizing you. But I think what we learned is that you have to say, I'm going to be open to this feedback. I'm going to go in with an open mind. We're going to show that we're an open company and to meet with people and work with people. And at the end of the day, I think that attitude and that perception in our marketing helped us get to where we needed to go. But it's interesting. Where do we go from here? I think that what we experienced in the pandemic, from the way we work, the way we communicate, is not going to change. Now, hopefully, around the world, people go back into the offices and COVID goes away. But I think some of the behaviors have not changed. And so, as in terms of people wanting to work from home, people wanting more flexibility. So I think as marketers, we need to show the same level of flexibility, the same level of empathy as we go into a post-pandemic world. I think some of the scars are going to be with us for a long time. And so we need to always be sensitive to what people have experienced as marketers. So with that, I will wrap up and just want to say thank you for allowing me to share a little bit of the Zoom story. I hope that as marketers, you think about what each of you have individually experienced in the pandemic, because it's transformed every business. In our case, it was a massive, tailwind. But I think it just shows that the marketing industry is dynamic. We have to be adaptive. We have to change and empathetic to our customers and our prospective customers. I think if we do that, we can manage just about anything that may be coming our way. Thank you.
So learning from the learned, the almost overnight transformation by the global pandemic that we witnessed changed everything. We know that. But here's to you, Derek, for sailing through the tide so well and also sharing your journey with us. Now we have something to learn from, right? When it started off last year, there wasn't a kaleidoscope really to look into. So, all right, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, very quickly, I will ask you to just have a look and hang out at the NetApp booth, fill in the feedback forms there at the booth itself, while also there's an additional feedback form that you see at the bottom of your screen. Fill in both, gain those points, keep clicking pictures, use our official hashtag, which is hashtag ETDataCon. There's so much more coming up. And the next session that's warming up, backstage, this is going to be phenomenal. I can tell you, having interacted with them before, I know what's coming up. We're going to be talking about the growing brand loyalty. Will it be easy in today's world? So I'll be right there patching up all the speakers. Please stay tuned.